Tyler Eisen, the president of the Los Angeles Police Protective Association, also wanted to ask about the question of realignment. And Ms. Lacy, let me put part of his question to you. First, do you think that realignment will be a danger to public safety in Los Angeles?
Warren, I think it will be a danger to public safety.
Why?
If we don't, well, because what's going to happen is you're going to have people released early without sufficient monitoring, without sufficient resources. I think you have to understand what caused realignment. You have to understand about the prison overcrowding decision and why realignment occurred. But I think what the state has done, it shifted the problem and said, we're going to give you a third of the money to deal with the issues of inmates coming from, who should go to state prison, coming into the county system. I personally don't think probation is ready to handle it. Probation has gone through a leadership change in the last 3 years, and I think they already had issues, so we're putting that on the backs of them. We're putting that on the backs of local frontline law enforcement. And I think the money is not coming their way. There are many law enforcement agencies now that are basically doing parole monitoring. And they are doing checks on people and discovering that they are not adequately monitored. Now, we're lucky that crime has not taken a severe spike, but I think luck is really the operative word. I think that we have to have things in place, and only with the proper financial resources can you do that. And so I just also want to say that realignment, there are other priorities, but realignment is really the big issue.
You said you would ask for legislation. What legislation would you ask for?
Well, some of the legislation that I've already asked for is for drug dealers to be added back in to the population of people who can go to state prison. I think there are several other situations where those people should be added back in. But I also think that the governor, when he did this, he did promise a constitutional amendment. He did promise funding. And we've got to insist that that funding come our way. And I think that that's something that I'm already doing as chief deputy of the district attorney's office and already asking for those resources to come our way. And we continue to do so, understanding that we need that. We need the resources.
Mr. Jackson, you've talked about a number of different things. You listed a number of priorities. You said you'd put more resources into public corruption, for example, also into high-tech cyber crime, identity theft, and in gang prosecuting as well. How can you do that when you're going to have to have such a reduction, or when you're going to have to focus so much on realignment, and when that's going to be so important to your office? How can you do it all at once?
That's a good question. They're not mutually exclusive, Warren. They're absolutely not mutually exclusive. The people that are affected by realignment are people that are going to county jails that ordinarily would be going to state prison. That includes certain gang members. That includes certain people who engage in identity theft. Identity theft, for instance, certain cyber crimes and high-tech crimes are considered N3 felons, non-serious, non-violent, non-sex offender cases. They're going to be populating our jails. Our jails are full. That means they're going to be the people that are being released early. So they're not mutually exclusive. And I do want to visit with you for a second about realignment. It is excruciatingly important. And I'll say it this way. Ms. Lacy said she thinks it might be a public safety issue in the future. I think it already is. It's been with us since October 1st of last year, and I think it was ill thought out. Were the people's hearts in the right place? Perhaps. I'll give everybody credit and benefit of the doubt for wanting to do the right thing and wanting to empty out the state prisons, but it was a disaster the way it happened, and here's why.
Safety as a result? Excuse me for that, hitting the mic there.
As a matter of fact, the LA Times has reported over and over and over these pockets of neighborhoods, including Hancock Park, including other neighborhoods which traditionally do not see an upsurge or an uptick in property crime and burglaries and things of that nature. Have all Hancock Park alone saw in a 90-day span from the beginning of the year until about March, a 30% increase in property crime in those neighborhoods. They've had to increase patrols in Hancock Park. These are things that are happening, I think, in no small part because of realignment. We're letting folks out on the streets without proper supervision. And I will echo Ms. Lacy's comments about that, but I would take it a step further. There are specifically 5 things that I think we could do, and I as district attorney will do, to alleviate some of the concerns of AB 109. And that is, number one, establish an alternative sentencing scheme that absolutely demands intensive supervision, and that means working with the probation department. Number two, I'm going to work with other county departments, the sheriff's department, mental health, the public defender's office, the board of supervisors, to try to build an infrastructure which is missing. And that's a central rehabilitation and support services infrastructure that doesn't exist in Los Angeles County, and it needs to, for the folks that we expect to rehabilitate. Number three, I develop a system to categorize inmates who are going to be ultimately released in pretrial circumstances. Right now, 70% of the county jails are filled with pretrial litigants, people who are pre-conviction litigants, folks who are accused and have yet to be convicted. Those folks have to be categorized before they're released on bail or monitoring or whatever other scheme we decide to release them on. Number four, I will ensure that the DAs who populate the courtrooms throughout the county are equipped to deal with what is ultimately going to be a surge in new crimes, a surge in probation or parole violations. And finally, Ms. Lacey mentioned that she hopes to pass legislation. And she said whoever takes over the DA's office needs to understand how to navigate those waters. Well, Warren, I've already drafted legislation. SB 983 is pending in the Senate currently. And that would give a built-in relief to the county jail system such that the county of Los Angeles and all 58 other counties could contract for out-of-state beds if it gets that bad.
Ms. Lacey, did you hear in the response from Mr. Jackson how he could do all of the things that he lists and pay for them at the same time?
I didn't hear that, and what I heard also was things that we're already doing. We're already working. I have been part of the committee that has been working with mental health, with the probation department in order to figure realignment out. Alternative sentencing has been my baby with regard to the criminal justice system in this office, and so we're already starting to figure that out and get that done. I think that it is one thing to come up with theories and ideas, and it's another thing to have a practical working knowledge of what can and should be done. Realignment has been or was passed very, very fast, and there wasn't a discussion with the stakeholders, and no one that I know of was more vocal than our office about saying that there was a problem here. I do think that there is going to be a problem with resources. We're not going to be able to add more staff. And so we've got to sort of figure this out. And I think the right answer is the way realignment is structured now. The sheriff is determining who gets out and when. I would rather that be put right back in the courtroom where the judge, where the prosecutor, where you have a probation report, and that's where you determine what should happen.